I am here with some, again, of my favorite people. B. Vang from Clint Eastwood, Gran Torino. Heidi Ritchie, a former instructor of mine who Heidi's been on. I think you've probably been on our show probably more than anyone. We've really kind of like, Heidi, we're branding into our show she's just phenomenal with the topic of communication. She's a big reason why we are what we are. And she called me up the other day and wanted to bring on a friend that she met, Mike. Mike, everyone, is here from Australia. 17-hour time difference. Earlier today, he was talking with our crew at 4 in the morning to do some like technical work today. So Heidi called me up, wanted to do a segment about human connection. That's what our whole show's about. I totally wanted to take this opportunity. I'm going to let Heidi really just introduce Mike, and what was the real drive behind wanting to do this segment with the four of us? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, there are 4. Well, thanks, Cole. Thanks for having me on again. It's really great to be here. Actually, I teach conflict management and mediation at a university, and one of my students had told me about a colleague of his, Mike, and he has a program called Pathways in Jerusalem, yes, or just Israel, yes, also, in Jerusalem.
Right throughout, but also Jerusalem, yeah.
Right, and it's so in line with my values and what I'm trying to teach in terms of being able to see people as people and not just the problem. And also empathy, because I think a lot of what we talk about today is this lack of empathy, and we do a lot of ugly things when there is no empathy. So I wanted to introduce Mike for a moment. Mike, do you want to just tell us about Pathways and what you do real quick?
Sure, with pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. It's really, really nice to be connecting in this way. So I'm Mike, the Regional Director for Pathways, which is the Institute for Negotiation Education. We're a non-profit which is building the field of negotiation education in Israel and indeed the region. And we do so through negotiation skills, leadership and bridge building programs for students, educators and civil society leaders. Really our mission is to nurture a cooperative and genuinely shared society within which people from different backgrounds and communities have the mindset, the skills and tools to be able to creatively negotiate, problem solve day-to-day issues with one another. People from different backgrounds, communities, wherever they come from and whatever their own experience is, the ability to come together to meet out and about in society, connect with one another and do so in a way that is, constructive, possible, and they feel that they can do so creatively and cooperatively.
All right. And what are the age groups that you usually work with?
So in the student space, we work with high school students, 10th, 11th grade students. The educators, we run professional development programs spanning from one-offs to full year-long courses that are acknowledged through the Ministry of Education, so through the system itself. So anywhere really from teenagers right through to adults, and civil society leaders, of course, leaders in their own respective fields as well. Predominantly our focus being in negotiation education is that high school age. It's a pivotal age to really foster some of these skills and tools, and certainly that hope, that mindset that this is possible.
Mike, you really work with religions though out in that area, right? Like you really work on like the conflicting religion battle that is going on. Am I correct?
That's right, yeah. So when we talk about working with people across different communities and backgrounds, we're talking linguistic, religious, cultural, geographic. So all of those cross-sections in a deeply separated society, systemically separated society. One of the main goals and what we're trying to do is to bring people that otherwise wouldn't come across one another, bring them together to learn these skills that they can then continue to apply in their day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
So we have B on because B is really a spokesperson for the Asian American community, going against the racism that's occurring, and so Heidi, you see a big solution to just this problem of the lack of human connection that is occurring. You're seeing as empathy, the lack of empathy is what's a big underroot cause.
Well, it is a big. I don't know if it's a solution because that's a big. We deal with a lot with people. And I think you're not always going to change some people, but I think that when we can start to see each other as people, start to relate to each other, start to connect to each other, we see each other differently. And when I was listening to B speak, about Gran Torino, one of the things about the movie that I think was most powerful was the fact that even though Clint Eastwood started out as pretty horribly racist and maybe ended that way, because he got to know B's character, it superseded that, and they developed this really powerful friendship, basically where he gave his life for him in the end.
He chose his family, or he chose your character over his family. He gave the car, and like even the neighbor, the grandma, he gave the dog, which was like his best friend, to him when he was going to go. And so like, I like that. And
so it's how do we start to see each other as people? How do we connect? And a lot of that is finding common ground. And I think what impressed me about Mike's program, at least from what I know so far, is that they're not just teaching the skills, but the kids are hanging out and they're working together. So it's really hard to hate somebody that you actually like and you get along with.
Yeah.
Even though, culturally, racially, you're very different, or even being taught to hate. Right.
Mike, how do you get these people to find commonalities instead of differences? I think so many of us, if I would probably say the word pro-choice, maybe half this audience would get this cringe in their stomach. If I would say pro-life, the other half of the group gets this cringe in their stomach. What do you do or encourage people, or how do you get these groups of people with religions where they are taught to hate each other, how do you get them to find common ground?
Yeah, it's a super interesting question, and I think that the bare bones answer is what Heidi's referencing, which is meeting in the human space. Whilst we come from different backgrounds and contexts, we all have an irritating sister who is kind of on our case, or our parents as teenagers who want us to come home by curfew, and how do we navigate that? So we're meeting at the human level and raising issues or day-to-day challenges, even those, as I said, that are seemingly intractable, that we can each relate to. And when we meet at that human level, we start to see a person, not just a label or a religion or someone that I've been told I should be scared of or fearful of.
Right.
But I think all of this also comes with political recognition, with our governments doing things to ensure the rights and dignity of people as well. It can't just be that we just have to meet each other midway and recognize the humanity in others. It has to be that in civil society as well as in political society, that our rights are given and ensured.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that's why there is no simple answer,
Right.
but it's what can you do as an individual? And I think that's what should drive us is to say, some of us are going to do things on a really big scale, like be super intelligent, and he's all got the political background, just plugging you. But then there's also the things that we don't think matter, when they're just as simple as opening a door or going up and talking to somebody, or somebody drops something and you pick it up for them and hand it to them, and they're of a different race or a different culture. You're just stepping out.
I want a real easy answer for anyone that's out there that's like, what can I specifically do? Like, what is that one thing that someone, like anyone in the audience, can walk away our show, go outside, and they can do? Is it you say hello to every person that you see? Is it that, like, what is something that we can all, just a simple answer that could help? Not necessarily solve the problem, but would get us in the right direction. Like if someone's like, okay, I hear what you guys are saying, but what is it that I could do when I leave the studio tonight? What can I do?
Do you have a gut instinct?
A gut instinct?
Yeah, do you ever have a gut instinct that you should do something?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we have that gut instinct and we don't follow it. And I go back to, kindness is probably the most simple thing. Does somebody need help? Can I just open a door for somebody? It doesn't mean you have to walk around, hey, because that could be bad or scary. That might not be a good idea. But just some of that kindness and not being afraid to reach out to somebody that's different than you and ask questions.
Understand, get to know them.
Yes, just as simple as wanting to, giving,
Wanting to, I love that.
Okay.
People don't want to.
Right. I think when people want to connect, they don't know how, and we're not taught. We're not taught active listening. We're all separated, and we've talked about active listening, and a lot of that's asking questions and then just actually listening to what somebody's going through.
Yeah.
and building that understanding from there and being able to relate.
I think that's a problem of our education as children and as young adults. We're not taught how to deal with the moral ambiguities of adulthood. And I think that that's another issue that we have to deal with, which is why, I think part of what my answer would be is that we need to have understanding. We have to understand and know the history and know everything in order to see the humanity in others.
I love that. I agree with you 100%. We are put through grade school. We are taught calculus and these terminologies that I don't even understand why we were taking those classes. We never are taught how to love. How do we connect with someone? Why are we never taught those things? I think that is absolutely right. We don't know how to listen. We don't know how to notice that someone is feeling sad or lonely when you look at them. Like, I think that is a beautiful, wonderful answer.